of grants that an agency can apply for. For example, agency ABC has 2 physical brick and mortar locations, so they're able to apply for 2 food shelf program grants. We'll get into some more examples of this later on. And as I said, we'll send this out because this could get to be a little bit confusing. So please come with questions. For the mobile food program grant, we wanted to have a really broad definition. We used the definition that Hunger Solutions came up with a handful of years ago when they did the mobile food grant. And a mobile food program is defined as a food program that's designed to bring free food to those in need who may be experiencing barriers to accessing food from traditional brick and mortar food shelves. And this could include a handful of mobile food programs. It could be pop-ups, it could be mass distributions, anytime that you're bringing food to folks in need. We really rely on your expertise in this area as well. So an organization can apply for up to 3 individual mobile food shelf program grants. We do recognize that some agencies have a food shelf and a mobile food shelf program. They can apply for a grant for each. We have some agencies that have 30 mobile food programs, and while we would love to support all of those, we had to keep it down to a minimum. We only have a certain amount of money. And I think we're good to go to the next slide. So tribal nations are able to apply for up to 3 grants total. So that could be a mix of brick and mortar food shelves and or mobile programs. We really look to the tribal nations to define their own programs. So again, for tribes that are applying for the first time ever and would like to have some conversation or some assistance throughout this process, please contact Stephanie, and she can definitely help with that. I did see that there was a typo on this slide. So a tribal nation can apply for up to 3 grants. So if there are, again, any questions. We can go to the next slide. I'm just going to make sure that we're okay with the chat. I don't see anything in there. So who's not eligible for the MFSP grant? Well, if you're not in good standing, then you're not eligible, right? Got to get those stats in, got to get them in accurately, and have to have them in for the past year. If you're not currently participating in TFAP and you're a nonprofit, you're not eligible. So all of our MFSP grantees also distribute TFAP, except for the tribal nations. So that is an expectation. And unfortunately, for this year's round of MFSP funding, TFAP on-site meal programs are not eligible to apply for individual funding. Next slide, please. So MFSP grant funding. So how do we work the dollars? Our office began looking at how equitable MFSP distributions actually were. We looked with our Hunger Solutions partners at how much folks are actually receiving. We had some agencies that per year were receiving, $100, $200 from the MFSP grant, and we had others that were receiving over $50,000. So in an attempt to begin to address the range of grants, we decided to ensure that a base was available to all grantees. And we will continue to look for opportunities to keep tweaking this grant so that more agencies receive larger grants. So each eligible grantee will be awarded a $1,000 base. And whatever funds are remaining after the $1,000 base has been distributed, the funds remaining, we will use a formula allocation to divvy that out. So for brand new applicants, for those that are new agencies or are new to TFAP or tribal nations. When you apply, you will at a minimum receive the base. And if you have additional stats for programs, then you will receive additional dollars on top of that. Since we don't know exactly how many applicants we will have, we anticipate average funding will be approximately $6,000. And again, as always has been, the funding will come directly from Hunger Solutions. Next slide, please. So this is the slide that makes me really miss Joe. He always talked about the MFSP funding formula, and I'm not a super number person. So, but as I mentioned earlier, it's really critical that you get your monthly stats reports in on time and accurately to your food bank. The stats are used to calculate how much MFSP you'll receive, sometimes how much TFAP you'll receive, and allows for an accurate statewide look at hunger in Minnesota. So going forward, your annual program stats will be used to calculate how much MFSP you receive. In previous years, Hunger Solutions looked at 6-month increments, and now we're looking at a full year of stats. And that again helps with this formula and determines how much money you'll get. So if you're missing a month or two of stats out of the 12 months, you'll receive less money than you're entitled to. So we really encourage you to get those stats in. And if you have, again, any questions, if you're doing it right, if you're missing some stats, please contact your agency specialist. Let's see here. As stated on the slide, we'll be using stats from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, which is the state fiscal year. And then you'll get a percentage of funding based on your visits. I just want to stop here and make sure that we don't have any questions so far. Okay, let's see.
It looks like people are asking about the mobile delivery programs qualifying.
Okay. Homebound delivery qualify as mobile? Yes. I think, again, we wanted to leave the definition as open as possible. So delivery programs qualifying for mobile, yes. So if you are delivering food to folks, that can look very different, but the fact that you are moving food out into the community, to me anyway, clearly signifies that it is a mobile program. Melissa B. also wondering if the formula is only based on numbers served or looks at pounds. It's the number of individuals served. While submitting stats on pounds is required every month, we are only looking at the number of individuals served for this. Mobile programs, just like every other program, must be submitting their stats. So for example, when I ran food shelves and worked with worked with Second Harvest, we had 2 brick and mortar food shelves and 3 mobile programs. The 3 mobile programs looked very different, but for each of those programs, I had an individual account number for them, and I had to submit stats for each of them. So that is what we're looking for. Weekend backpack programs, mobile delivery. Backpack programs are not approved for TFAP. And so if you have a program that is approved for TFAP, you're able to apply for funding for that program. Oh, from Echo, what if we bus the clients here? So if you bus the clients to your brick and mortar food shelf, that would be a food shelf application. And then you could apply for, funding to support that, but I don't think that would be a mobile program. In order to apply for the grant, Sandy McClurg, in order to apply for the grant for a mobile program, do you need to keep separate stats for that program? Well, as far as I know, the the food banks, when you apply for TFAP, you apply on behalf of the program. So as far as I know, you would have a mobile program ID for the separate program. So if we can definitely get some more information or talk with your agency specialist about that exactly. On the application, folks, and Stephanie will talk about this, we will be asking for your program ID, which is the program ID that you get from your food bank. If a mobile program goes to multiple sites, is each site a program? So that's a tricky one. I'm gonna just say I don't have an answer for that, but I'm gonna, without more information, I'm not sure about that. I mean, it would definitely, you're able to apply for a mobile program that goes to different sites. I'm not sure if that would qualify as different, but I need to think about that one, Sue, a little bit. And we are taking all these questions and we'll put together an FAQ to send out after this. So if I don't have answers today, we will. Scott Andrews, currently we've been lumping our home delivery stats in with their brick and mortar. Do we need to work with the food bank to set up separate programs? I'm surprised that you don't have separate programs. So we would encourage that. Stuart, separate from the funding, my question is about the amount of TFAP items per agency. Is it based on annual allocation? Stuart, that's a good question. So in previous years, the allocation for TFAP was based on your stats, and the food banks were in charge of that and made those decisions. Over the last couple of years, a lot of the food banks have opted to not allocate TFAP just because there was an influx and there were so many perishable products that needed to get out. So most things were put on surplus. So that allocation didn't really come into play. Some food banks have gone back to TFAP allocation. So check with your agency specialist on that. Okay, we have another question about backpack programs. Backpack programs are not approved TFAP programs, so they would not be eligible. Allison asks, is this the number of duplicated individuals or unduplicated individuals served in the year? That's a great question. We only go by duplicate. So unduplicate individuals, we are not requiring at the state level, you all to be reporting on those. This could be different at your food bank, but for us, we're just interested, well, I mean, we're interested in it all, let me be clear, but we're just collecting duplicate stats. Is there a way to make weekend backpack programs eligible? You know, they're not eligible right now. The states do have the authority to decide that, but particularly this year in the state that we're in right now of limited TFAP, we are unable to open this up to an additional category of food programs. Kiera asked, you mentioned a maximum when you were discussing organizations that have 30+ sites. What's the maximum number that an organization can apply for? Kiera, we are going to be talking about that on the next couple of slides. App deadline been established. We'll talk about that. Okay, so it seems like a couple of folks don't separate their stats out. I think that is going to lead to a longer conversation that we'll have with the agency specialists. Oh, and thank you. I see Lisa Boyd and Debbie chiming in. Great. Okay. I think we're kind of caught up. I'm really thankful to have the agency specialists on this call to answer some of those questions. We meet with them with Hunger Solutions every other week, so we can definitely hammer out some of these answers for you all. Okay, so we are going to keep going with allowable expenses. This hasn't changed. MFSP has always been a really flexible grant, and there will be the same allowable expenses for the food shelf application and for the mobile grant application. So, there are a ton of allowable expenses listed on the slide that I won't go over, but we recognize that this probably doesn't even include all of those things allowable. So if you have questions, reach out to Stephanie if you don't see something on this list, but chances are it's approved. We really want to support, staffing and rental and food purchases and refrigeration and all of those things. Nora, next slide, please. So assurances are the things that an applicant agrees or commits to do when they apply for a grant. The MFSP application lists a number of assurances located at the bottom of the application. So those have been updated, not necessarily changed. So you'll want to read through those before you apply. A couple examples of assurances. Grantees for MFSP commit to spending down the funds by June 30th of each year. And they commit to completing a final report. The final report is really important for us, particularly at the state level, because we definitely have to justify and provide our leadership with how funds are being spent and if they're being spent in the right ways. Our office and Hunger Solutions will have ongoing communications with grantees throughout the grant period to assure spend down, to send reminders and all of those things. Go ahead, Nora. So monitoring is a big part of any grant. MFSP grantees will be monitored by our office in partnership with Hunger Solutions. Monitoring visits will focus on grant funds. How much money did you get? What did you spend it on? Was the money spent on allowable things? It's important for all MFSP grantees to keep the records of the dollars that you spent. And you do this by keeping receipts and invoices. I think we have front and back of canceled checks, if those are a thing anymore. Grantees will be notified by our offices when you've been chosen to be monitored. And all grantees, regardless if you're being monitored or not, will be required to keep grant documentation for 7 years. So next, Stephanie will walk through the steps for applying. Let me just double check and see if we're good.
Yes.
Okay.
We are. So the application will open on Monday, the 19th. And we will send out an email as well as it will be listed on our website. So you won't have to track it down, but if for some reason you don't get it, just reach out to me and I'll make sure you get it. I can email it, text it, however you want to receive it. And they'll be due October 3rd. And then we'll send the award letters by mid-October. Your 501c3 status will be verified if that's applicable. Your ACH information will be verified for your direct deposit. And then you would have to accept those assurances that Courtney talked about. And the funds will be dispersed around November 1st.
Thank you. And I see a question in here from Melissa. I'm not sure which food bank you're from, Melissa, or which food bank is yours. In response to why we don't have separate ID numbers for mobile, there has not been a reason to do that. And we have all just added service as needed. Well, I do want to say that anytime a program is distributing TFAP, so anytime an agency or its sub-programs are distributing TFAP, they need to be approved for this. So for example, Good in the Hood, which has like 30 different mobile distribution sites, did have to fill out a TFAP application and get approval from their food bank for each of the sites. So anytime TFAP goes to a different location than your physical food shelf, if you were doing a mobile distribution at a church, for example, or at a school, you should and need to have TFAP approval for that, just to ensure that food storage and safety is being adhered to, civil rights. Lisa.
Yeah, Courtney, finish your thought. I think I may have a point of clarification for Melissa's comment, because I think I have a pretty good idea what she's talking about, but I want to make sure you finish your thought because I think it's related.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. So, as I said, when I worked at Merrick, we had 2 brick and mortar food shops, and then we had 3 mobile programs that looked different. One was in a public housing, one was at a church, and another was in a senior high rise. But I did have to apply for TFAP approval for each site. So I had 5 account numbers, and if you are planning on doing distributions, or you are doing, you're distributing TFAP outside of your brick and mortar food shelf at another site, an application does have to follow. You do have to get approval for that. Lisa, does that?
So, Courtney, I think what Melissa is pointing out, which is related to my comment earlier, is she's not saying they don't have a separate account for their mobile food shelf program. She's saying that they've been handling mobile food shelf and home delivery differently. And I think what she's saying is what I was saying. A lot of programs, when people were shut in during the pandemic, they started organizing volunteers to deliver their TFAP and food shelf distributions to the person's home. And no one is going to set up a separate account for every home address or apartment building when what they're doing is they're getting volunteers to deliver the brick and mortar food shelf distribution that people would have come in for. This is, in my opinion, this is another one of those pandemic era innovations where we learned, for a while everybody was shut in, and then we started to notice, oh, this population is always shut in. And so people really expanded and refined their home delivery programs, but I don't think anybody was considering that a mobile food shelf program. They were considering it an extension of their brick and mortar. And now today we're learning that maybe that home delivery program is eligible for its own grant. And you're asking us, did we separate out those statistics for those home deliveries? No, I would be surprised if anybody, maybe somebody was doing that, but most of the food shelves I work with were just reporting those home distributions under their brick and mortar because that's what the operation was coming out of. So I think people are rightly curious now, can they get a third grant for their home delivery program because that's developed into something much more extensive.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I get it now. Yes, okay. So it's not a separate program necessarily, but it's providing a service through your bricks and mortar food shelf. Okay, I get that. Thank you. I don't have an answer for that. I need to think about that. I think we'll have to, we want to be, we have a set pot of money, and I think a lot of it will be determined on how many applications. I think we're going to have to talk about that as a team. So we'll definitely get back to you on that. I think you brought up a great thing, and y'all know if it were up to me, we would give out the money in the way that it fits you and your needs. So let's continue this conversation. I don't think we had thought about it that way, but you've made a great point. Okay. So now we're getting into the intricacies here of what do you apply for? So we've put together, the next couple of slides are a little bit of a guide. So please take the time and look through that. But I will, walk through a couple of these scenarios. So if your organization or tribal nation has one brick and mortar food shelf, then you apply for one food shelf grant. You would receive the $1,000 base funding, and then additional dollars based on program visits. So again, that formula would be overlaid. 2 bricks and mortar food shelves, apply for 2 food shelf grants. It's the same thing. You would get $1,000 base funding for each site, and then additional dollars overlaid on top. 1 food shelf and 1 mobile program, you would do 2 applications, a food shelf application and a mobile program. You would get the $1,000 base for each of those, and then stats overlaid. So now y'all are having me think just a ton about about what Lisa just talked about. So we'll have to provide some clarification on that, because now my head is spinning a little bit more. We'll go to the next slide, Nora. Yep. So a food shelf and 3 mobile food programs, and you're able to apply up to 4 grants. Again, as you'll see, and as Stephanie talked about, the applications, we've tried to make them as easy and brief as possible. So if you're feeling overwhelmed that, oh my gosh, now we're gonna have to apply for 4 different grants, it should be pretty easy. It's we really want to make this as low barrier application process as possible. So if you have 1 food shelf and 9 mobile food programs, then you would apply for 4. That's where that maximum comes in for the mobile food program. So you can apply for 1 food shelf grant and then 3 mobile grants. So hopefully, once we send this out and you have questions, please refer back to this. And then if you continue to have questions of how many applications, then just reach out to Stephanie. Okay, the next slide. We're going to switch gears a little, and we're going to delve into the CC grant, which is the Cultural Collaboration Grant. Okay, I see Scott has a question about quantify. Okay, so it looks like I see Joyce Food Shelf has a question in there about kind of the same theme of core brick and mortar, and then also doing mobile distribution. So please refer to the FAQ that we'll send out. All of these questions, again, will be in there with answers. Okay, so moving on to the CC grant. For the 3rd year in a row, we're offering the CC grant. We recognize that there's significant and important work going on to support BIPOC communities in Greater Minnesota. And we also recognize that funding opportunities are more limited in Greater Minnesota. So that's how the CC grant was kind of born. This grant seeks to support agencies improve their food program services to BIPOC communities, and you're eligible to apply if you are a nonprofit, 501c3 participating in TFAP, or a tribal nation. Interested grantees or applicants can apply for up to $5,000 per year for the CC grant. And this year, the grant has its own application, which is separate than the MFSP grant. And as always, HSM will distribute the funds. We anticipate that funds being distributed in late fall. So it will have, Stephanie can talk about the application, but we have $60,000, not a ton of money, $5,000 grants. And let's see, we can go to the next slide, Nora. The eligibility is almost the same for this grant as for MFSP, but with one big difference. There's the geographic requirement. So folks that are interested in applying have to reside outside of the 7-county metro area. You have to participate in TFAP, and you have to be in good standing. And again, if you have questions about your standing, talk to your agency specialist. And for tribal nations, they also have to reside outside of the 7-county area. And we can go to the next slide, Nora. Just want to make sure. Okay. Who's not eligible? Similarly to MFSP, if you're not in good standing, you're not eligible. If you're not getting TFAP, you're not eligible unless you're a tribal nation. And if you're located within Anoka, Carver, Dakota, Hennepin, Ramsey, Scott, or Washington counties, you are not eligible. And on-site meal programs are not eligible for the CC grant either. So the CC grant allowable expenses are a bit more focused than the MFSP grant. the list provided on this slide is just a list of examples, but we rely on your expertise to identify how this grant can best be used to support the work that you're doing in the communities that you serve. So some examples have been outreach and translation, bilingual or bicultural staff, purchasing culturally relevant foods are just examples of what this funding can be used for. Excuse me. Next slide, Nora. And again, with our assurances, which will be located at the bottom of the application for the CC grant. All awards must be spent down by June 30th, 2023. It's the same period of documentation as the MFSP grant. It will have a final report. And all of this information will be posted on Hunger Solutions website. Next slide, Nora. Monitoring and additional requirements, same for the MFSP grant, same for the CC grant. Monitoring visits will focus on how grant funds were spent. And so tracking of that is really important. Please keep all of your receipts for the expenses associated with the CC grant. If you've been chosen to be monitored, you will be contacted by our office and Hunger Solutions, and keep your receipts. And it's important that you keep everything as per usual for the 7 years. Stephanie is going to walk us through how to apply for the CC grant.
Pretty similar to the MFSP. The applications will open on Monday and are due the same day, October 3rd. We will send the award letters mid-October, letting you know what your grant amount was, and then we'll verify your bank information, your 501c3 status, and then that just make sure that your assurances have been signed off on. And then the funds will be dispersed around November 1st. And if you have any questions or didn't get an application or just need help with anything, feel free to reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. So I'll help with whatever you need.
And there's
We're here to help.
there's Stephanie's contact information. I see a handful. Jalila asked a question about sending in your spending receipts for the grants, and if that is still a requirement. When we send out, or when you actually apply, there'll be a link to the final report, which will have all of the requirements on there. I can say at this point, you are required to keep your receipts and have them available upon request. So let's see, I see.
Yeah, you won't have to upload them unless we specifically request them, in which case you would just send them straight to us. So you don't have to upload them if we didn't request them.
Is there a, let's see, Chris Olson, is there a specific number or percentage of persons from various cultures that are programmed to be eligible for the CC grant? Chris Olson, I think this is a trick question. Because no one's allowed to require folks to report on their ethnicity or their race. So no, there's no requirement. We just rely again on your expertise, and if you are serving BIPOC communities and this grant excuse me, would be helpful for you. The CC grant is competitive, right? So you will be applying in competition with other agencies. So I think just making the best case for why your application should be funded is where you can really kind of add additional details about the populations that you are serving. Okay, so just to recap, the spring and fall MFSP grant funds will now be distributed 1 year. Sorry, I lost that one. And the period of performance will run, okay. So the spring, yes, so the spring and the fall grant will be distributed one time a year now going forward, and that will be in late fall. So our goal is to get the dollars out by November 1st every year. The period of performance, which is different than the spend down. So the spend down period is this current grant year, which would be July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. We are looking at your stats for the formula from the previous year. So you would all have your stats in by now for us to use in this formula. So we will be using stats from the previous year that ended June 30th. Let's see. Oh, great. So Lisa talked about demographic information through Minnesota Compass. And Melissa asks, even if you do upload receipts, you still need to keep them for 7 years, correct?
I have a question. There's supposed to be, I can no longer use the old program through Hunger Solution for my monthly stats. Because there's supposed to be a new program coming out now, but it hasn't been installed on our computer yet.
What's your food bank, Diane?
There's supposed to be a new program. They're using it for the pop-up pantries. And everyone had to fill out TFAP forms. And we've always had that done at our food shelf. But I don't have that program available at my food shelf yet. And I gathered my assumption on this was going to take place of the program I was using through Hunger Solution before, and I could run off my monthly stats and send it into the food bank. And I'm assuming that with this new program, it's available to any organization in the state to use anyway.
Diane, what food bank do you work with?
We're through the Second Harvest North Central.
Okay.
In Grand Rapids.
Okay, great. So we will, I suggest checking in with Jan.
Yeah, I got an email saying that a long time ago that this lady was going to come and do it, or we were going to do it 2 people at a time in a visitation type thing, but I haven't heard any more. So I'll check with Jan. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just not sure what that would be. Let's see, other questions here. Oh, thank you, Sue. And then Jalila said Pantry Saver is great software to track stats and sign up clients for your food program. Thank you, Jalila. And Pantry Saver or any other food shelf database would be an allowable expense. You could use grant funds to support the purchase of, or for any software and any technology. So definitely, if that's something that you've been considering, you can use these funds for that. And I think that's it for the questions in here. Let's see, Anika. Oh, okay. So folks, we have time left if there are any additional questions.
Courtney,
Yes.
this is Lori Damon. For that last question, Second Harvest Grand Rapids is changed to what's called neighborintake.org. It's new software, and they've started using it at our Onamia food shelf. So that's what she's talking about. They're bringing tablets around to the food shelves so that they can record their visits on that, and then they're pulling the reports from that.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I hope that Diane, you can connect with Jan or maybe possibly with Lori here, Lori, if you'd be willing to, and if there are any questions or information that you can share with each other.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yes, and Jalila, we will send copies of the PowerPoint and slides just to go over a couple of dates of when the applications will be live. We will send out information. We anticipate the application will be live at the end of this week or Monday of next week. Nora, can you remind me of the date for that? The applications will be open for approximately 2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks, and they open on Monday.
Thank you. So Monday, September 19th, both of the applications will be open. They'll be open for 2 weeks. The applications will be posted on Hunger Solutions grant page, and an email blast will go out. Stephanie, from you all with the links.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
if
there'll
there's-
be emails sent out through Hunger Solutions Minnesota and also through the Department of Human Services Gov Delivery platform. So yeah, several different ways you'll get it.
So you'll get the direct link and a reminder that you're not able to save your application as you go. So I would encourage you to find a quiet spot and maybe a day when you don't get a bunch of deliveries, so then you can, dedicate the time and fly through these. Barb Anderson, how many years do you believe these grants will continue into the future? Barb, that's a great question. I'm really confident in the MFSP grant. I know that Colleen Moriarty from Hunger Solutions is on here, and she has probably the best sense of sustainability for some of these things of anyone on this call. The MFSP grant has been around since the 90s. So I have no reason to believe that it will be cut. As I mentioned before, we all continue to advocate to the legislature for an increase in funding. That is less stable.
Hi, Courtney.
Hi,
It's
Colleen.
Colleen. I just thought I'd blink on and say the food shelf grant really existed. It started because of the advocacy of the food shelves, who came together and worked with Hunger Solutions and other organizations to get that law on the books. It can be cut any year. Should that's why advocating for it, organizing for it, having meetings at your local food shelf to talk with people, maybe, some of the people who are recipients who would like to give testimony or to be a part of it. It really exists because you have said how important it is. At a time when leadership changes, we've been able to defend this every year and get some increases, but it's only there because of you. And it only stays there because of you. So I really invite you to be actively supporting this program, because I know it makes a difference to all of you. And I know that if it were gone, it would have a dramatic impact. So join us, talk to people in your local level, make sure that your local legislators know how much you support it. And if you need any help with that, just let us know at Hunger Solutions.
Thank you, Colleen. Folks are asking if we'll send the PowerPoint out. Absolutely. We will send that out shortly. We just wanted to make a couple of updates, and we want to make sure that you have the accompanying documents, the FAQ. Nora, what else am I missing? I think that there's some.
Yeah, we're also going to be putting out, so on that FAQ document, there's going to be some additional guidance from us that gives all of those, basically everything that was on the PowerPoint will be more summarized in a document that you'll be able to easily read. It'll give all the eligibility definitions as well as all those examples of number of food shelves and mobile programs and what to apply for. So look for those. Those will be sent out after this meeting, probably around the same day that the grant launches on Monday. And they'll also be posted on the Hunger Solutions website to accompany the application.
Thank you.
Take just a second. I'm going to take advantage of the group to say a large shout out to thank you for DHS and OEO and Hunger Solutions for the presentation, for your advocacy, your support, and always assisting us to do the best we can. I'm wrapping up 44 years and I'll be done on Friday, September 16th. And a shout out to Eric Vallen, who's on the call today, who will be the new program manager. So thank you, really. I have appreciated all the support you guys have given us and help us walk through this.
Thank you and good luck. Oh my gosh, congratulations. Yes, there are a ton of congratulations on there. Thank you so much. And we appreciate all of the work that you all do, that you continue to do every day. And, you know, from our agencies, we're always looking for additional funds and screaming from the rooftop of what folks need to do their jobs as best as they can. So